Hi, I'm Roger. For today's recipe, we'll be making my mama's pasta. The ingredients you'll need for this recipe is a half cup of butter, melted and cooled, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and 3 eggs lightly beaten, and a cup of water. I already have 6 cups of flour in the bowl. I also have a dough hook attached. With the dough hook on low, I'll speed things up a bit. In this case, the dough came out a little bit on the dry side. If that happens, just add a little bit more water at a time. As you can see, it's still a little bit on the dry side, so I'm going to add a little bit more water while it's running. It's pulled away from the sides, and it's very pliable. Alright, now comes time to cut the dough into different sizes for different purposes. This is my professional roller. I used to have to do it with a hand crank machine. This saves a lot of time. You want to flour the surface. You want to take a small dab of dough. You want to flour that up as well. Flatten it out just a little bit. And then turn on the machine. Now this has different settings. On this one, the first setting has the biggest gap between the rollers, and that's what you want to start with. As you go along, you'll turn the dial to get the thinnest. This goes all the way to 8, which is a little bit too thin for me. I prefer the number 7. It's still got some bite to it. As you can see, when it first comes out, it's kind of mealy. You can still see the flour. So for the first setting that you have it on, you want to do it a couple times. Just bend it over, squeeze it down a little bit, and then once it starts coming out a little bit smoother and shinier, then you can progress to the other settings. Now, depending on the kind of noodle you're making, this is an excellent stage in which to shape it to see if it's going to come out long or if it's going to come out wide. The longer you get it, the better it is for things like spaghetti, tagliatelle, or pappardelle. Now this is number 7. There's still one more setting. I would use that if I was going to do angel hair pasta. But since I'm going to be making fettuccine, I think this is a good thickness. You want to flour it up a little bit. And then as you're waiting to do the rest of the dough, you can just fold it on itself without it sticking. And then you just progress. Put this back down to 1. Take another piece of dough, flour it up, and then continue. So this is how you roll out the dough for my mama's pasta. Stay with me next time and I'll show you how to cut the pasta into various sizes. This is Roger with my own little kitchen. Thank you for joining me. So for the pasta that you have not rolled out, you want to grab it together and with a damp towel, you want to put it in a plastic bag. You want to do this because if you don't, the pasta will dry and it will be almost impossible to roll out. You want to squeeze as much of the air out and then seal it. Now this pasta will be good in the refrigerator for maybe 3 to 4 days. I wouldn't wait much longer than that. Now, I have other pasta here that we rolled out in the last episode. I'll put the cutting fixture on here, lock it in, tighten it down. What you want to do on a pan that you're going to be putting the noodles in is you want to make sure that you add some cornmeal. This basically acts as little silicone balls so it doesn't stick to the pan. Now I've chosen the fettuccine noodle. Now that's the fettuccine noodle. If you want to make noodles for soup, you would just take this. Depending on the length of this, you can cut it in half, quarters, thirds, however long you like the soup noodles. And then you roll it up and you can cut it for as wide as you want. You can cut little ones, you can cut thick slices. But make sure that after you're done cutting, you open it up so that it dries properly. Otherwise it's going to stick. So when you make chicken noodle soup, these are really good noodles to put in that. The flour that's on them also helps to thicken up the soup. There's all different ways of making the pasta. You could add things like spinach to it to give it a green color. Some people also use squid ink to make it almost a black color. It doesn't affect the flavor too much, but it sure makes it pop when you're going to cook it. Now remember, if you're going to use fresh pasta in your soup as opposed to dry pasta like orzo or anse di pepe, you want to take time to know that this is going to cook a lot faster. So you put it in the soup a lot later than you normally would. Otherwise, if you cook this too long, it's going to come out very mushy. And then what I do with these is I let it sit on the tray for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, sometimes overnight. And what I do is every time I walk by, I move it around a little bit to make sure that everything is drying. And that's how you make noodles for soup. Thanks for joining me again. And in the next episode, I'll show you how to use this to make raviolis. And we'll be making my mom's ravioli filling also. Thanks. See you again later. Yesterday, we cut some noodles. We're letting them dry for a few hours. And as you can see, they're kind of dry, but still flexible. When they're in this stage, this is when you should wrap them up. If you let them dry too long, then you can't bend them. You want to do them in little circles. Some people call them nests. And depending on how many people you are feeding, most of the times I weigh these into 8 ounces because it's just enough for my wife and I. But if you're feeding more people than that at a sitting, then you can make them larger. And as I said yesterday, when you go to make fresh pasta, when it comes time for cooking, it only takes a few minutes. Unlike dry pasta, which normally takes anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes, this will probably cook in about 3. If you're putting this in your refrigerator, it will last for a couple days. If you put it in your freezer, it'll last for 3 months. If you go to cook it and it's frozen, leave it frozen until you put it in the hot water. If you thaw it out first, you get one big glob of noodles. And you don't want that after you spent all the time making it. And you can see how this dried. It still has a little bit of a bend to it, but it'll be great for soup. Get this out of the way. Alright, now I still had dough left over from yesterday. What we're going to do now is roll it out for sheets to use for ravioli. I already have this down to the widest setting, which is number 1. And now we'll just roll out the rest of it. you get a tear or something unexpected, you can always refold it and go back to the lowest setting. So as you can see, we just finished all of the ravioli dough using my little machine here. If you don't have a machine, you can always use a rolling pin. Roll it out to the desired thickness. You can cut it into strips for your pasta, or you can leave it wide like we've done for the ravioli. So that's it for this episode. I strongly suggest, if you have one of these mixers, to get this attachment. It makes it so much easier, but if not, this will save you a gym membership. So until next time, thank you for joining me in my own little kitchen.